As you can see here, the title is Accessing Community Resources in San Diego, and the project surrounds the improvement of web-based delivery to the community for information regarding community resources. I'd like to thank my mentors and the LEND group here for being such an inspiration. It's been a wonderful process, and it's nice to be here presenting to you all today. Next slide, please. So needs identification took the form of two kind of forks, if you will. One was the community needs, where we recognized with the Autism Society that the listing as it currently existed, and this was a community resources page, was very difficult and difficult to access. It took the form of a Google document. There were categories that had duplicate listings. There were categories that weren't necessarily understood by people new to the diagnosis, such as what's ABA, what's OT, things like that. And the community also was faced with alternate methods, such as Google searches, that can return way too many pieces of information and know where to start. They might not be local, they might not be accessible, whether it's due to distance or insurance, etc. And there was other information that were relevant to parents that just wasn't accessible through Google without extensive research, such as the ages of the clients served or languages that were spoken by a resource. And from the agency side, the Autism Society of San Diego, we recognized that the Google Doc was listing many resources that weren't relevant, they were out of date, the information was no longer current. So we decided that we needed to improve the resource categorization, as well as a way to deliver some more localized searches for the community. We also recognized there was a need to review the approximately 250 existing resources to determine who was still in business, whose contact information needed to be updated, who needed to be removed entirely, as well as a number of new resources that were available for the community to know about. And to those ends, we need to just describe and develop methodology to update the information on a regular basis. And as the lists were growing, it was quite a massive task, and these things really needed to be attainable for the agency. Next slide, please. So in the development and implementation of this process, it also took form in kind of a two-fork or two-system approach. The first was the data collection and the web publication needs. Our webmaster, Michelle Talbot, actually provided two different plugins that we sampled and looked at, decided which would be the best fit for the agency. And then she redesigned the page for us with input from stakeholders, myself, and other members of the Autism Society. And in addition to that, the methodology for collection was determined that we could use an automated process using a Google survey. And we went through a series of revisions on what we wanted to collect from the resources, feeling that the more information we could capture for families, the better decisions could be made once they came across the page there. And so the Google survey was very nice because it fed right into a Google document, and the Google document could be reviewed for publication by members of the Autism Society or volunteers as part of the sustainment process. So moving on to sustainment, we created a dedicated email, and then I created email templates to address various phases of the process. And this included an introductory email, a follow-up email for the Google survey, and then an email template that will be mailed out 1 year from the date when a resource submits their information. The second portion of sustainment was using a job tracking tool called Asana. And that was created with the relevant stakeholders added to keep in the loop. And you'll be seeing in the next slide kind of what that looks like. In addition to that, the tracking template was created in various categories, follow that process all the way from a nomination, if you will, or initial contact to a previously published resource. And this will all keep the project up to date and perpetual into the future. Next slide, please. And now I know this is really tough to see. The final product here on the left, what you're seeing is the redesigned web page. So formerly, we had a page where people would just see a list of kind of in a almost a how to describe it, almost like an Excel format, and it really wasn't that easy to get through. So the way people actually start here, and it's a little bit clipped, but they can start hovering over map sites that are maybe nearby them, and they can get a little blurb like you see in the over the map there to read a bit about the resource. Or what's actually accessible that you can't see in this mode is that people can enter in their zip code or their address, and then they can select a series of categories, one or more of resources that they're interested in learning about. It might be a category of medical-dental or therapies-dir or advocates and agencies. I think we came up with about 18 different categories that were more user-friendly and free of jargon. And then the return results there will be selective to those criteria that the community member is looking at. And then they can actually read more, which you see down in the green box, which not only has the listing, it has email contacts, web links. If they choose to use social media, those will be displayed, as well as a description. And if you can make it out at the very bottom, we have information about the age ranges served, languages spoken, payment methods, whether they accept insurance. And we also have we actually have to add this in manually, but whether or not the client is an SDRC vendor. So much more relevant for making appropriate decisions or finding resources that fit the bill of anybody in the community. To the right there is a screenshot of Asana. And so this is what we call a board view. And if you see in the upper left-hand corner, there's a template there. And when we start the process, we duplicate that card, type in the resource's name, and then they move across the board to the right as far as the status of where they are in the project. Once this first phase is done and the survey has been returned, it's actually columns off to the right of where you see survey sent, then they move to another project, which is the year-over-year tracking. And so to date, we've reached out to about 60 different resources from the list of 250 or so. We have identified actually over 275, I want to say 300 additional resources. So there's a lot of work to do. At the time I put together the slides, we had 10 listed on the site. We're now up to 12 as of this morning. And so this will be something that'll be going on. I can easily foresee it all through summer. Next slide, please. So the implications are that the visitors can search for the community resources very locally. The filtering helps families, maybe if they're not certain about what a typical category is, if they select that category and read the descriptions of the service providers, they're much more likely to become informed about the types of services that are available. And by providing the more in-depth information, we feel this is really expanding the quality of the resources available to the community. The sustainability aspect from the framework, using templates and Asana to kind of automate things. If you've ever sent out a Gmail to be scheduled later, that's what we do with our Gmail templates for follow-up. So that way we kind of ensure that as these resources grow and we get more and more people involved, it doesn't become a big crunch say January 1st next year. And the project itself supports the mission of Autism Society San Diego by improving the lives of all affected by autism through connection of those in needs with meaningful community resources. And so if you have a resource suggestion for the site, you can email us at resources@autismsocietysandiego.org with your suggestion, and we'd love to hear from you. So thank you again to the people, my mentors, especially Kelsey, for talking me off the ledge all those times, and to the group here at Lend. I appreciate all of your time.